adventures in imperfect living.
Hey, greetings, folks. My name is Greg Willits from RosaryArmy.com.
And I'm Jennifer Willits, his wife.
And welcome to another edition of the show. Sorry there wasn't a program last week. We heard from you.
We missed you, though.
We heard from you. Well, did we?
Yes.
Did we?
Because had we had our normal time together, it would have meant that our lives were normal. So I missed you.
So it's we're recording in the evening, and it has been a bit of a week, and
we have
the sound
no
of effervescence.
more driving responsibilities this evening. So because we are not needed behind the wheel, we are only promoting responsible consumption of beverages on the show.
So I'm just going to have a nice tasty tonic, and nothing else is in here whatsoever. Cheers, baby.
Cheers.
Love you.
And
I said I love you. I said I love you.
I love you too.
I professed my love publicly for my own gain and accolades.
I love you too. For those of you who are watching us on video, you are being treated to me wearing the Rosary Army official ball cap because I have not done my hair in a week or something because it's summertime.
Talk about the ball cap and the shirt
know.
I'm wearing. This is totally not intentional product placement. I don't think I ever put that hat on the store for people to get. Did I?
I don't think you did. You were just sort of testing it out to see if you liked it.
Well,
I like it.
There's a lot of things that I've tested and haven't made available on our Rosary Army store. And part of it is because it's been in flux. We had it as part of Willits Works. We're in the process of doing this huge renovation of Rosary Army's website, of creating a brand new learning management system platform for School of Mary, and had a 2-hour-long meeting just this afternoon, a few hours ago, where we talked about that. One of the things that has to happen is the new store. And so I basically think I need to set up a whole new store and recreate all of the things that we currently have there. But it's going to be very, very Rosary and Rosary Army centric. So it won't have any of my personal designs and that kind of thing of just doodles. Like, again, if you're on the video right now, like here's a mug that I think is currently on the store, but you're not going to be able to get the skin. I drew like Roy Scheider in Jaws, and it says you're going to need a bigger boat on the other side of it. I did that just for fun. And I wanted to have a place to let me put it somewhere. And I just don't care about that anymore.
I have an idea. As one of the staple Rosary Army products, I think we should have a nice Rosary Army satchel of sorts, and not the typical flat canvas bag with the big loopy handles that everybody has. I mean, like something that's really fitting for the rosary maker to put a couple spools of twine in there.
So there's two ways.
Scissors, everything you need to make the rosaries. Something custom kind of like for Rosary Army. Then a nice journal too. Two
ways that we can do things like, well, let's talk about the satchel first, right? So if we want to do the satchel, which is a good idea, the way that I've done it is there's just a couple of print-on-demand companies that I've worked with so far. So like this t-shirt was done print on demand, meaning there's no inventory of this. Same thing with that hat. I upload the design, I tweak a few things. That's an embroidered, this is a print. They're high quality t-shirts. It's like Bella is the manufacturer, but they have other brands as well that I could choose from. And all I have to do is upload the designs, design it online, create some mock-ups, and they don't make any until someone actually orders one, and then boom, and it sends it off, right? Same thing with the hat. For the other option is like what we do with, right now we have some of our books available on the store as well. We keep the inventory of that. So we fronted the cost of having those books on hand. So literally we have some boxes of books down in our garage, right?
Yeah.
So the satchel that you're talking about, I haven't seen anything in the print on demand. Most of the print on demand are going to be the plain duffel bag looking thing that you're talking about. But if you wanted to have something nicer, you could certainly look for something like that. You could even have laser engraving, Rosary Army on the side of it, and that kind of thing. And we would just have limited amounts of those, but we would have to front the cost of those, keep the inventory, and then you'd have to ship those as a part of Rosary Army.
Does
that not sound as appealing anymore? When
two bag manufacturers came to mind. The first was Vera Bradley, which probably will not work, but they have the nice quilted, and they're just really fun.
I have no idea.
Quality and design, and also I think, I want to say it's 31 woman products, like our friend from Colorado. It's like the Mary Kay of bags, but it's like a bag company.
What, do they sign up other people to sell the bags?
Yes.
Oh, so it literally
it is like the Mary Kay of bag company, but I can't remember the name of the bag company.
It's like pyramid marketing but with bags.
But you can have like all kinds of things like custom embroidered in it, and wow, it's just. And I love their stuff. I have some of their products. Like my rolling luggage bag is from that line of bags.
But you'd have to front the cost on those.
Yeah, probably so. But maybe there's a deal can be made.
Well, I think what's going to happen. So part of the reason why we're doing it with the store is the way that we've done rosaries for years of giving away a free rosary to whoever asks for one. Is people can go to the website, print out a form, mail it to us, and we did that for like a decade. And then about 10 plus, maybe 12 years ago, we added a form, an online form, because people wanted to just request it online. And it's been good, but it's created more problems for us, I think, in many ways. And part of it is because people want to just do it on the form and they don't want to do any work, basically. It's really easy to fill out a form online and just put in your name and address and go, now send me something. And then I'm going to write you an email in 2 weeks when you haven't sent it to me yet and complain about it. What we realized was we if we were going to do the form, there had to be some level of precaution to keep people from just filling in one address after another and taking advantage of us, quite honestly. And so what we did was we came up with a solution of having the form, and if someone requests it online in the United States, we just automatically charge $1. And that doesn't cover the postage, but it prevents it keeps some of the fraud back, right? And if for people out of the country requesting one, they automatically get charged $10 because normally a stamp to send a rosary out of the country is minimum of like $15, but we've seen it upwards of 40 or 50 in some countries. And so it depends on where it's going is how much the postage is going to cost. But we've said, all right, well, we'll ride this cost. We'll take care of the difference, right? So if it costs $5 in postage to send a rosary, is that about what it costs now?
Yeah. I mean,
in the U.S.,
there's the postage, and then there's shipping and handling.
No, but just like
things.
the stamp. I mean,
on average, under $4 right now.
So $4 for the stamp, and then but it's all the stuff that requires to make it happen, the online services and all that we use to process, and then for you to do it overseas, it costs that extra amount. So we put that into place where this online form automatically generates that $1 or the $10, depending on if they're in the United States or if they're in another country. And that's been okay, but we've noticed over the course of the last 10 years, more and more requests come in that they go ahead and say, oh, well, I don't mind being fraudulent if it only costs me $1 to be fraudulent. And we'll get a lot of multiple requests and a lot of people basically playing the system. And it costs Rosary Army, right? We have to be wise stewards of the donations that have been given to Rosary Army to help us to be able to do not only the rosary giveaway that we do, but all the other work that we do. We have to be prudent with the cash. So one of the things that we're trying to set up in Fiveable, the group that we're working with, they're great guys. We've worked with them for years. We've known Brian. I think I'm Brian for the first time, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years ago. But I've been working with Brian and the two Daves and some of the other guys over there. And they're all like, yeah, we can totally do this using Shopify, which is what Willits Works is currently built on right now, which is that we can that was Marlene Watkins calling me right now from North American Lord's Volunteers. She was on our show a few weeks ago. Now, just got a call right now, and I just hit decline. Sorry, Marlene.
Hated to do that.
Really hated to do that.
But we will call you back.
We will call you back. I feel I'm very perplexed right now. Where I'm going with this is with Shopify, they think that, number one, we want to make people go through a process, a longer process of understanding what Rosary Army is about. We're not Amazon. We're not a store. You don't order a rosary from Rosary Army. That's number one. Anytime someone sends an email and go, hey, I ordered a rosary from you, and I'm like, well, you didn't really order from something from a nonprofit. When we're giving something away, it's, you might request a rosary, and we're happy to give you one away for free, but you don't normally order free stuff. I guess that's one thing. And the reason why that kind of sticks with me a little bit is because I feel like when people say I ordered a rosary, they're missing the mission. And so how do we help people to understand it's not just about getting a free trinket or something that you hang on your rearview mirror. We want you to know Jesus Christ, and that's different. So let me come back to that in a second. Shopify, we think, will be able to make it so that, number one, Shopify will calculate exact postage based on where you're at. So rather than us doing that little trick that we've been doing for the last 10 years of $1 or $10, and we still end up having to cover most of the postage, if someone wants the rosary and request online, they just have to pay the postage, is what we're going to switch it to. If they want it postage free in the United States only, we can't do it for out of the country, then they can still print out the form and send it to us. How do we explain all this? Well, what we are realizing is the infrastructure we're setting up for School of Mary will allow us to create basically the first learning pathway for someone who requests a rosary is, let us first tell you about the mission. We're going to make you sit through what might feel like a sales pitch, but we're not selling you anything. We want you, if you're going to get a rosary, we want this to actually have meaning in your life. And it really, and so I'm kind of playing with, well, what are the main messages that we want to get across? If we have people's attention, and they're actually going to have to go through those videos, that little bit of learning, before they even get to the point of being able to get the form to request it or be directed to Shopify. And that place on Shopify will have all of our t-shirts, all of our hats, our mugs, whatever, but you won't see, and you don't know this, you won't see the free rosary on Shopify if you just go to Rosary Army store. So if you go to Rosary Army store on Shopify, you won't see it.
Okay.
You have to go through that pathway.
That's good.
And the reason, and so again, the reason why is because now we have the opportunity to say, we're going to give you this rosary. We're happy to give it to you, but we want you to understand that this rosary is your conduit to being able to learn more about Jesus through Mary, and that's completely different. So I'm excited that that's something that we're going to do. That it's different that we're doing that. And so right now, I know a lot of you have been hearing us talk about School of Mary for a while, have been hearing us talk about the new website for a while, and to give you an update, part of the conversation today was, when can we launch the new website? Right, so Dave number one over at Fiveable. There's 3 Daves over there now.
Okay.
So I normally say that I just say their last names. I call them by their last names. But Dave number one, I'll call him Dave number one. He said, when can we launch this? And so we're going through and we're kind of doing a bullet list of all the things that still need to get fixed, like you're walking through a house on the website. So brand new website's coming for Rosary Army. But that means that part of it is that we're changing it to drive people to want to become a part of School of Mary, which is, again, going to be free, right? To join School of Mary is free. On launch, everything that we have there is going to be free. Down the road, if we do something like, I don't know, a 1-day retreat or conference online, we might charge for that. But that's not, I don't have any definitive plans, but that infrastructure is going to be there just in case. But most of it's going to be free to whoever wants it. And so today we're walking through what some of those first classes, courses will be, and offerings and that kind of thing. And just so you know, we have a lot of things that need to be recorded, and I can do it by myself, but I think a lot of it will be good if it's you and I together. And we, so I'm working on the plan and we're working on the outline for those kinds of things. Okay. But just lots of things coming. And we're talking about today with catechism class in particular, what can we do to make that more of not just a course offering, but I keep forgetting that part of what we're going to get in here is the ability to have quizzes, and we're using AI to kind of pull transcripts out. And you can actually have AI go through what we said on catechism class and develop a quiz, like a 10-question quiz. Not that you're going to be tested or graded on, but just to help you know, did I get the knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. And to sort of build that stuff into your brain. So there's a lot of things that we can do to make it a little bit more interactive. And so we were actually playing with, they have something that I can tell you about this, Catholic.chat. I think we talked about this a little bit.
No.
I didn't tell you about Catholic.chat. I thought I showed it to you.
You did to me.
Oh, okay.
But it never went out on the show. Are you sure we can mention that?
Yes, because they actually, I think Alateo was doing a story about it.
So the cat is out of the bag.
Yeah. And so Catholic.chat, they basically took ChatGPT and merged it with the catechism, so you can go in there and ask it questions about Catholicism, and it gives you answers based off of the catechism. And Dave number one and I today were talking. We were doing some experiments in it, trying to say, well, how could we incorporate this into School of Mary? And we actually can incorporate some parts of it that we could have it basically generate an interactive discussion with you, whoever signs up, right? If we go through a particular lesson or something like that, we can have the AI generate quizzes or whatever it was. So you could actually go into this thing now, and Dave number one discovered this, that you can go in and say, tell the AI, quiz me on the catechism, and it will just ask you random questions about the catechism and give you hints and that kind of thing. And you can even be more specific and say, quiz me on the catechism, but give me multiple choice answers, that kind of thing. So it's pretty cool.
Wow.
To play around with it like that. So lots of things happening with School of Mary. So the launch on that, we talked about, should we launch the website first and then School of Mary later this summer? And I think that's our preference. Just so you know, our goals are meant to be missed. Our goal is June 12th website launch.
Okay.
That's a week from Monday.
Okay.
As we record this, we have a lot of things that have to get done, but we're going to try to make that happen. And so what that will allow us to do is also give us about a month and a half before the launch of School of Mary, and give people a chance to sign up. Be the last ditch chance to sign up for School of Mary.
Excellent.
So
okay.
All right. So that's your update there. Have a great week. We'll talk to you.
No,
there's more.
Greg, how are you?
Oh, well, you asked me that question. Listen, I mean, last week we bared our souls to you.
Yes.
And there's been other things that have been going on that we didn't talk about even on last week's show, even with all the stuff that's been going on. And one thing I think it's okay to say this now. Pretty sure it is. We can leave details a little.
You want to run
fluffy.
it by me first?
I think so.
Yeah,
High level.
High level's fine.
Yeah.
High level's fine.
My parents moved, and it was very sudden in the last 2 months, and they moved to another state, and they have been back in Georgia since like 90. They moved back in fall of 1990, and lived close to my sister, put it that way. My sister helped them have a home, and my sister and her husband are retired, and she's much older than me, much older than me. I'm the youngest out of 6. She's the oldest, so old. She'll never watch this. And she and her husband, they said, hey, they've been holding on to this property, which my parents are tied to as well, and they want to get on with their retirement. They want to move on to the next phase of their life. And I think it's wonderful. I think I'm one of the few. I thought it was an awesome thing that they were doing. But it came, I think, as a little bit of a shock to my parents. They said, basically we're moving, and you could stay or you can come with us. And so my parents went with them. And it's so that has been very stressful for them, I know. But
they're up in years.
My folks are, Dad's 86 and Mom is 85 and will be 86 later this year.
So to be a part of an out-of-state move in your mid-80s is tough. It's tough on the young, and it's really tough on that age, bracket. But
Dad's closer to 90 than he is to 80.
Yeah. So, but they have had a lot of help from their dear friends who they have made over the last 30 years of living in one place. And so they are definitely feeling all the emotions that go with an out-of-state move, leaving community that they have really fostered and enjoyed for the last 3 decades, and having to say goodbye to a lot of dear friends. Undoubtedly, it's been very hard for them.
So, put it in perspective. You and I, in September this year, will have been married 28 years. And they attend the same parish where we got married. And they had been attending that parish for a few years before we got married. So the fact that, that they were very integrated into that parish. They've seen many priests and parishioners come and go. And so it's weird, And it was happening in the midst of all these other changes, some of which we talked about last week on our show, that were happening directly in our house and continue to happen in our house, and weird things that are happening, just life changes that kind of caught us off guard, but they really shouldn't be all that difficult. But, good news, like our son Ben, 21-year-old, finally got his driver's license last week. He passed his test.
Be to God.
And we managed to our wonderful, if you listen to Catholic in a Small Town, you probably have heard them talk about Jesse, the mechanic that we all go to, and who's just a great guy. I'm so thankful to God for Mr. Jesse. And we've asked him many times over the last couple of years, like, do you ever have cars come through here that people are looking to sell? Anytime we've looked to buy a car, we've taken it to Mr. Jesse. And I don't think did we talk about the car debacle?
No, we didn't.
Like you found a car that we thought we might want to buy, drove literally an hour away, got the car. They allowed us to bring it to our mechanic. Mr. Jesse looked at it and he said,
within 20 minutes,
he said
he called me.
The engine's fine, but the car's been all wrecked, and they've tried to repair it, and it's a terrible paint job. And it makes me feel like an idiot. He told me that. I'm like, oh, really? It's bad? Well, surely it can't be that bad, Mr. Jesse.
The car did not look bad at all.
And then he points out, look at the windows. And there's spray paint like all on the edges of the windows. Look on the inside when they like when they were painting the car, they like spray. There goes Jennifer coughing fit. Oh, this is the first time on video. Congratulations, baby. Normally I can cut this, and there she goes. This is what happens. You don't normally see this, and he just went out there and sneezed in the middle of the cough. You don't normally see this in action. I'm kind of excited that this is happening right now. That people could see this has happened for like the entire 18 years that we've been podcasting. Is that suddenly she'll like run from the room and then start doing that? But you actually got to, man. It's like that was like seeing a wildebeest in public. I don't know what's an animal that you don't see in public very often. Anyway, that was. I don't have any cough drops up here. You got your wine and I got my tonic water. Anyway, so Ben got his license. My parents moved to another state, which is really weird. And Walt got stuck at our house for the last week because he had car troubles as well. And I swear, if I have to listen to any more discussion about cars or driving, I think I'm going to lose my mind. But going back to that car from last week, when we brought Mr. Jesse, he pointed out the problems with it. When we went back and looked at it again before we returned it to the car dealer, you could see it and you could feel it. It didn't even have clear coat on the outside of it. They literally just did like a spray paint job on this thing, and that was it. And Mr. Jesse said, the paint would have fallen off in a year. He said we would have just had a rust bucket in a year. So thank goodness for someone like Mr. Jesse. That was very loud, the curtain pulling that you just did.
Sorry.
And so we dodged that bullet. But Mr. Jesse said, he gets asked about 3 or 4 times a week if there are used cars that he knows of. And he says he can't keep track of these things, and he normally doesn't do it. And lo and behold, a couple days ago, I had driven Ben to work, and I was working on that co-working space, and you texted me and said, Mr. Jesse called all of a sudden. Said, hey. You said, hey. He said, you still looking for a car? He had a car. It was his son's mother-in-law's car. So, his son works for Mr. Jesse. He's been doing all the work on it for most of these years. They know the car, and they made a great deal on us. He told us today he could have sold it for a lot more, but he made us I really do think he made us a huge deal.
Yeah. And I just realized this earlier today.
As you were coughing?
Earlier today when I was not coughing, when I started...
Knock, knock.
When I started...
Knock, knock.
Who was there?
Coughing.
Coughing who?
You, apparently.
Okay. So funny. You're so funny. When I started this process of shopping for a used car for Ben, I had a budget that I was working with. And I thought, I know the days are kind of long gone when you could get a used car for your first teenager for like $4,000 in this country. That kind of used to be how it was for a while. Then came COVID, and then all of a sudden...
$4,000, nothing. I mean, you could get one for a couple grand. I mean, at one point.
Well, I mean, like the car we got, $4,000 was kind of about where we were like a couple of years ago, like pre-pandemic prices. No. Since inflation has really rocked this country and especially has had an impact on our cars in this country, the used cars are actually in high demand in America. I don't know what it's like overseas, but over here, everybody wants the used cars because we're all trying to get a good deal. And so that has caused this severe inflation that my budget of $4,000 was impossible. So I thought, okay, maybe I can jump into this game of getting a car for $6,000. That was my initial budget price last year, was could I get something for $6,000? So I started working with an auto broker who was going to basically vet these cars for me and try to honor my budget. Every time we bid on a car, we would lose. And I would always be outbid by other dealerships with bigger pockets, and I could never win. And he says, is there any way you can increase your budget? I was like, well, I guess $7,500. I didn't want to do that. But
is there any way that you would pay more to me?
So that maybe it'll increase your chances of winning the bid. I'm like, okay, fine, $7,500. But that wasn't working. And then I'm like, well, what is the price where bids are basically ending? And he goes, between 9 and 10. I'm like, oh man, all right, fine, 9,000. Go to 9,000.
Which I still don't understand how we could pull that off.
Nothing. And then I'm like,
let me say here again, this kills me. This always kills me. So, we do all this, all the regular work that we do, but you're also working at the school, and your folks died, and you got a little bit there, and so what little bit we got from that after paying all your mom's bills, is sort of like, oh, maybe we can hold on to that. Maybe we can have a little bit better of a nest egg, right? And then suddenly it's like the hot water heater died. The parents are going through the same thing. Yeah. It's very weird why they're going through it at the same time as we are. Mm-hmm. They have all their other weird things that have broken down. But, our hot water heater died, and our refrigerator, or not our refrigerator, our dishwasher died, and we needed this car, and, all these other things. And it really kind of blows my mind. And again, whenever I get an offer of like a little side job, and I don't do this very often, I mentioned this recently. I'm working on a book, an audio book that I'm narrating for Sophia. They asked me if I would do this book called The Pope's Cabinet, Pius XII's Secret War for Saving Jews, which is, I'm so thankful that it's a good story, or it's not one long story. It's like, it's every chapter is a different story. I'm just glad it's interesting because it's a very long book to be narrating. I'm only halfway through, and I've narrated. I have like 7+ complete hours. But my point bringing that up is, as soon as they asked me to do that in one other book, I was like, yeah, I just kind of, my spider sense was going off. I'm like, something's about to go down. Like, I just knew
something's going to break.
Something's going to break.
Some major expenses coming.
This is God.
This is going to help us.
God does this. It's like whenever these little extra, like a speaking engagement or a writing thing. I've had, out of the blue, all of a sudden had a Catholic magazine say, I'll pay you X amount of dollars if you'll write an article of 2,000 words. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. But inevitably, and this has been even before we got into the Catholic thing, just websites back 20 years ago, I'd get these little jobs. I'm like, yes, we're finally going to scramble ahead a little bit. What I've learned is, no, something's about to happen, and God's looking out for us in advance.
Well, God doesn't want you to put your security in those things.
Yeah, I know.
He's just like, no, lean on me. So,
but that's kind of my point. It's like, so I'm not as freaked out now as I would have been 20 years ago.
Yeah, sure. You've matured.
And so now I'm like, no, it's easy come, easy go. It's like I haven't even finished the book job, but it went to the car. Basically.
Well, no. I mean, that money is still fine. I have not spent that money.
I was going to say, that money has already been spent.
No.
Before the car.
It hasn't. I've already found a way of, covering the other things. But I literally, this last deal with the auto broker I've been working with, I had just said, okay, I'll bump up my budget all the way to 12, but it better be a really nice car now, because now I'm going to drive this, and I'm going to...
And that would have required some financing too, wouldn't it?
I probably would have had to finance
which we really don't like to do.
40% of that, but it didn't matter.
Both of our cars are paid for right now.
Yes.
And our only debt is our house. We don't carry credit card debts.
Correct.
We operate mostly in the black other than the house.
So
to know that was down the path. was not.
I was
really
willing.
exciting.
I was willing to do it because I thought this market is forcing my hand. It's not what I wanted, but I could do it if I had to.
Thanks, COVID.
So after I increased the budget to 12, remember I started at 6. I literally doubled my budget in 6 months' time, but it got me nowhere. And in fact, after I increased the budget, I thought he would be, having me bid on multiple cars within a day, and it was silence for 3 or 4 days. And I thought, I'm not going to call him. I'm just going to let the silence be there. And that's when Jesse called. And the price of the car that he sold us was for my original budget last year for $6,000, and it was a pleasure.
Listen,
such a pleasure.
I don't want to read into Mr. Jesse too much. He's a private dude. He probably wouldn't even like it if we were mentioning his name on the podcast. I think it says something about his character. I honestly do, and it gives me a little bit of hope just for people in general, right? I'm so used to having. I could tell you so many stories of things that just like in the last 3 months, ways that just being mistreated that hurt. And, I'll wake up in the middle of the night thinking about these things of just recent hurts. When we brought that last car, the spray painted car, to Mr. Jesse, and he has told us over the last year or two, he does not see many used cars because they're so in demand. And when Tommy got in his wreck a couple years ago, we were like, all right, Mr. Jesse, we were thinking of just like scrapping this and then starting over. He said, you will be better off if you get that car fixed. This is a good car. You got body damage. Fix the body damage, the engine. And he's just being honest with us, right? You have a good engine. You're not going to be able to get an engine of this caliber for the amount of money it would take to fix it. You're not going to get a replacement car. We're like, okay. So we took his advice, and it was the right advice. And he's just, so far in the 4 years that we've been living here, he's never led us astray. I mean, he's been a straight shooter and an honest guy, I think. Well, when we had that last spray paint car, I think he's a very stoic looking dude. He does not show much expression. He rarely smiles. You can't. He's hard to read. I would never play poker with Mr. Jesse. And he just asked, well, what's your budget? And you said, I wanted it to be 6,000, but this one was 9,000 that we were looking at, and I guess I'm going to have to go to 12,000. And I kind of think that when you said that, he was like, they have $6,000, and I think that's the way they took it, or the way he took it. I have no idea, but right. I just find it really interesting that the number that you threw out
was the number that he threw back.
There's the number that he threw back.
And and I think about the people in my life that I have had casual encounters with, and Mr. Jesse is one of them. So off and on for the last 3 years. He has seen over the last 4 years, he's either seen Greg or myself going into his shop and giving him business and making small talk and laughing with him. And every now and then his grandkids would go to work there. And every time I saw his grandkids, I'd always play with them and make conversation.
They were at work with him.
Because they're like 5 and 6, like work with dad day at the shop. But I was always delighted to meet members of his family. And I was just being me. I'm not looking for anything in return. I'm just trying to be a good person in the presence of another person that I value and respect. So anyway, this was just a real blessing. At one point I was so frustrated because I'd lost yet another bid, and I thought to myself, is it really possible, Lord, that you have another plan for me? Are you just going to let a car fall out of the sky and just get to me? It's not impossible, though. I bet you could do that if you really wanted just to give it to me. Hand it to me.
If a car fell out of the sky, then that would also mean that our house would be destroyed by the tornado that had picked up the car that was delivered to us.
But it is possible. God can do the impossible. And I didn't have to go chasing down all these leads. He was like, I'll give it to you. It's going to come to you. You wait and see. And that's exactly what happened.
And that's always the way it is.
Wow.
It's always the way it is.
So I've just been so grateful, and it's been so nice to be so thankful about many things, even the hard things. As you know, we have had some hardships, but we are finding our way through. this difficult chapter in our family's life and finding a way of loving through the pain. So we did get some feedback, and I appreciate all those who reached out to me, some via text message, and some through email. So we will share the emails. But
I want to know about the personal text messages.
Well, I got a couple text messages, and I'll share them with you. And but we're
not giving out our phone numbers if that's what you're going to ask.
No, but they already had it, so it was okay.
If you want to send us feedback, you can do so at feedback@gregandjennifer.com. You can also record your feedback via voicemail or video, and you can upload those to rosaryarmy.wetransfer.com. Probably a cool video on the screen showing you how to do that. It's super easy. Pull out your phone, record yourself on video, or just do the voice memo thing and send it to rosaryarmy.wetransfer.com, and we'll get it and play it on a future show.
So would you like to read the first email we got from Kurt?
This is from Kurt. This is in our discussion to talking about the difficulty of dealing with one of our kids who told us that they are no longer going to Mass, at least for right now. Kurt said, "We also have a new yak son." By the way, I have to eat my words. I really did not anticipate the acronym taking off, but we got two pieces of feedback. They both referred to yak children, YAC, young adult children. And I told Jennifer, I think as we were falling asleep the other night, I'm like, oh, by the way, I think I was wrong. Yak is catching on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry in so many different ways. But Kurt said, "We also have a new yak son and a teenage daughter. We have also felt the pain. All I can do is offer a email air hug."
Thank you.
Jennifer will accept that hug.
On video. I'm receiving it on video. See?
I take a little bit longer to get a hug. Let me just say a quick aside. So because my parents were moving, some of their friends from their parish wanted to throw a goodbye. And it was at the parish that we went to.
Throw a goodbye?
Throw a goodbye for my parents.
Party.
Goodbye party.
Goodbye party.
Throw a goodbye.
Okay. I don't know what that is.
Throw a goodbye. Here's a goodbye. Go on. Throwing a going away party for my parents.
A farewell
party after Mass. And so they asked us if we would drive down. And so we went down there. And again, we attended this parish a long time ago. We haven't been there for 10 years. It was 10 years ago that we moved to Denver. And, you know, it's so weird. There are people that you saw every week, but I was saying this to my therapist the other day. I'm like, I feel really weird how I saw people that day that when we walked out of that church 10 years ago, they ceased to exist for me. Not in any bad or malicious way, just I have never thought of them again since. There were two different people on that day that saw me, and I barely knew them when we were there.
When we were here 10 years ago.
At that parish. When we were parishioners at that parish. I barely knew them then. One of whom I didn't even know the person's name. These two people, two different families, both acted like we were long lost siblings that they did not give me a choice. They were literally both of them came up and hugged me before I even saw them almost.
It was a hug attack.
And one of them just kept hugging me. Just standing there as that person hugged me.
It's going to be okay.
Hugged me, sucking out the life energy out of my essence. And I am not an overly huggy person.
Some people are huggers. Some people are not.
I always think it's funny when sometimes if we haven't seen Mac and Catherine for a few weeks, we'll go over there and you're like, oh, hey, and you hug Mac. I'm like, what are you doing?
Mac is a hugger.
And then you hug Catherine. I'm like, what?
But I have very little time to hug Catherine.
What are you doing? And then and then I look at Catherine and we're like, hey. It's like, there's no hugging going on.
It's just a nod.
I think in all the years we've known each other, I might have hugged Catherine twice. And I think someone died when that happened. It records death. All right, so.
Yeah.
So thank you for the air hug, Kurt. I allow Jennifer to take it. I'm not going to accept your air hug. Air high fives, I will accept. So to you, Kurt, there you go.
There's your video.
So
high five.
This was from Leanne. Some of this we might want to skim over. She says, hey, Greg and Jennifer, I just listened to your podcast about overwhelming trials and tribulations with adult children. You are not alone. We are in a similar boat. Without too much detail, our 2 kids both graduated recently, one from high school, one from college. That sucked in itself. The usage of the word suck, we talked about in the last episode, will allow it. But it also meant that just when we were expecting to be empty nesters with number 2 going off to college, number 1 had to move back home. There were no jobs to be had for college grads in 2020. I can't imagine that. How frustrating that. I never even thought about that. I thought about kids just being stuck at home in general, but the idea of graduating from college and then like not being able to get a job, that would have been terrible.
We can probably jump to that paragraph there.
Why don't you read the rest of it then?
She also has a son, and she writes, as is the case with your son, our son is also not going to church now that he's on his own. It's disappointing, but it's his decision, and we need to respect him and his choices as an adult person. We make it a point to invite him over for a homemade meal occasionally, and lately, Sundays have worked best.
That's when we can tie him down with our all-twine knotted rosaries and make...
No, I've ever so slyly invited him to meet me at 10 a.m. Mass before coming over for lunch, which has been agreeable to him. So he goes to church when he's invited, just not on his own. It's a small step in the right direction, and I'll take it. So I would like to...
I think it just says, anyway, your podcast was comforting, knowing others are struggling with similar issues with their yaks. I just want to make sure that you got the acronym in there.
That's right, thank you.
We're beginning to realize parenting is never ending, just with new and different challenges in each season of life. We pray for God's guidance to be the parents our children need, regardless of age and circumstances. I'm thankful we could be the soft landing spot for our son when COVID hit and disrupted everyone's life plans, even if it did suck at times. Thank you for being real and sharing your real struggles. I'll keep you on my prayer list. Thank you for the prayers, Leanne. She's in Denver. Did we ever meet? I don't remember Leanne.
I don't think so. But that's cool that you're from Denver.
But that's why we shared it, right? That's
Yes.
why we talked about it. We always talk about, if we're going to share these things, what is the Catholic takeaway for people? If we're going to share personal life stories, there's got to be some connectivity. At least for me. That's my big thing. But that never-ending parenting thing, it's got to end at some point.
Death?
No, I mean...
What do you mean?
I was saying this to Mac the other day. I'm like, when was the last time my parents had to parent me?
Well, okay. I think maybe when you're maybe like late 20s, early 30s, you're off and running, you're doing a good job of being independent in your life. Then
that should be the goal. Your kids should be to the point where they don't need you to parent them.
Yeah. And I think that we are, on the edge of that for some of our kids, but we got a long way to go.
It's a long edge.
Our youngest is 14, so we're going to be at this for another decade easily.
No, Lily gets 4 more years of parenting, and then we're done.
Well, I do have a little follow-up with Tommy because I actually got to see him today. And
I haven't seen him in like 3 weeks.
It's been the last time I saw him was on Mother's Day. And so this was the first time I got to see him since we had that really difficult conversation about his faith a couple weeks ago. And it was totally fine. We had a task. We had something that we had to accomplish. So it was nice having that distraction, but it was also really good just to hug him and to see him again. And basically, we were just having to work on getting the car transferred into his name because it had always been transferred. It was always registered in my name. And in the state of Georgia, I don't know if all states have this, but it's really cool for the state of Georgia. If you are wanting to just give one of your cars to one of your kids, but it's registered in your name as the parent, you can just do a family transfer form, which I didn't even know about this until Catherine had mentioned it when she got her car from her brother. But if it's in the family and you could, sign like a notarized document that you're family members, it waives the sales tax fee, which you are hit with at the moment you're registering the vehicle. So that's like a savings of hundreds of dollars, if not $1,000, depending on the value of the car. So in order for us to take advantage of that savings, otherwise Tommy was going to get hit with that giant tax because he's the new buyer of this car since I'm re-registering it in his name. So I had to go and meet him where he lives, an hour away from us, at that motor vehicle. And so he was going to get a new license plate. He got a brand new insurance policy, all in his name. It's a little expensive when you're a 19-year-old single male living on your own. It's one of the highest insurance premiums one could expect to pay. And unfortunately, he has an accident on his record. That didn't help. But hey, it's what it is. So he took out the policy. The car is registered in his name. So I'm watching the lady who's helping us at the tag office, and she's go ahead and grabbing a brand new license plate that's got the correct county of his residence, and she's handing it over to him. And there's a couple options. In the state of Georgia, the state has 2 default styles of license plate that you can ask for. One that has the state fruit of the peach on it, and the other one is a little more like more blues, more cinematic, more it's not cinematic, scenic. It's not a movie. It's a scene. There's like a tree on it and like a blue sky or something. It's a little prettier than just like a giant peach in the center of your license plate.
In a world where people are driving on the highway and don't need to be distracted anymore, one state makes scenic license plates that are cinematic. So that you can be completely distracted while driving 285.
Yes. So he chose the prettier of the 2 license plates. And then he had an optional choice on what motto. It's a sticker that you could affix to the very bottom edge of your license plate.
It's normally the county. It's normally
yes,
you can have the county, or you can have a phrase.
A phrase. And so it's the purchaser's choice. Would you like the county that you reside in or the phrase of the state? And it is a very prayerful, phrase, motto. And in this county or in the state, it's you can choose to have "In God We Trust" to be like a sticker that would be affixed at the bottom of the license plate in plain view. And without missing a beat, he goes, "I'll take the "In God We Trust." And I immediately looked at him like,
did you really do that?
Yeah, but as a joke, and he just like, oh, mom, mom.
Yes, that is such passive aggressive mom guilt. That's like second level. That's like just jabbing it in, and.
But I didn't say anything else about it. I just
you just cried.
I thought I took a picture of the license plate and just kept it in my pocket because he chose "In God We Trust." That means he at least can concede to the point that he has a trust in God. That was enough for me.
I just trust that God will let me keep getting away with stuff. That's what he's
don't
trusting.
Say that.
All right, we got another
one. Okay.
This one is a question asking for advice. This is from Lori.
Okay.
She said, Jennifer. So you have to answer this completely, and I will just go back to having another sip of my drink.
No, we're going to have a discussion.
I saw you interviewed through my Formed app. This is Formed from the Augustine Institute. I'm guessing that this was probably like that women's conference thing a few years ago where you talked about how crazy I am.
No, I didn't think that was
that's on there.
Shared.
No, that's on there.
It is?
Yeah, that's on the Formed app.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
That's the only thing I could think of because
I had no idea.
We said you were interviewed, so I don't really.
But I wasn't.
I know.
Oh, but another lady interviewed me.
For what?
Just
is it Tammy Kaiser?
Maybe. I was interviewed by her.
You think that's on Formed?
This situation, like the talk that I gave was a presentation. That wasn't an interview. Anyway,
I don't know.
We're going to figure it out.
Laura, you need to clarify this.
Yeah.
Send
us a link.
I saw you on the Formed app. We'll just put that. And have listened to a few of your podcasts. The way you share information, I found you very relatable. In addition to your perspective, really resonating with me. Greg, not so much. No, she did not say that. I kid. I married for the first time at 38, and our daughter was born a few years later. Both of my parents are deceased. Sorry about that, Lori. And I find myself looking for mentor couples. Have you heard about Catholic in a Small Town? Don't look at them as a mentor couple.
Oh,
my daughter is now 6.5 and finishing up first grade. What motivated me to email is that tonight she wanted to play with her dolls and have 2 dolls be sisters and the other 2 dolls be their mothers. Have you found any good references for speaking to kids about how God intends family to be while not instilling judgment towards those she may encounter who live in very non-traditional families? My husband is extremely black and white on certain subjects and does not have compassion for those who are living their lives contrary to God's design. Thank you for any direction you can share.
Okay, so she's asking if we have any references. I mean,
yes.
Okay, I have many thoughts, but do you have what clear reference?
The catechism, and granted, her kids are, how old did she say?
6.5.
6.5, and what was the other one? 6.5 and finishing up first grade.
Yeah.
So, my daughter is, I read that as two different kids.
No.
One kid, 6.5, finishing up first grade. I got you. So, like we have the catechism, which is tradition explained, right? And then we have the Bible. And the catechism talks about these things. Well, you have to take it at different levels. What you can always go back to, using the Bible and using the catechism, using the teachings of the church, is God intended all of us to live our lives in a particular way. Not the same way, but in a particular way, following particular rules for our own good that keeps us in alignment with His will so that we can be with Him forever. If we're out of His will and out of alignment with God, then that takes us out of being with Him forever. So it's not judgmental to be able to say that. It's actually very unloving to allow someone to continue in sin. It's unloving to pretend that sin is okay when we know that sin leads to damnation. Even with our own children, when they have struggled with particular sinful behavior, we have talked to them and said, all right, here's the deal. You're putting yourself in a place that is separating you from God. God is not leaving you. God is not sending you to hell. You are deciding to go in that direction by your behavior. So a compassionate way of talking about it is that people have made choices in their lives that are separating themselves from God. And it's our responsibility to witness through our own actions how to live lives in alignment with God, and when possible, without shoving it down their throats, when possible, to actually have discussions with those. Now, you can't have discussions with people on a commercial or that are, doing partnerships with Bud Light. All right, I could say that without even having to say a name. I'm never going to change that person's life unless somehow, in weird circumstances, I have a personal encounter with that person and I can share with that person in a loving way the truth, right? So there's a difference between living out the truth and instilling your children with truth. And it's very important to instill them with truth without them feeling bad for if they saw something on TV and they thought it was okay. It's like, well, let's talk about this. And then your daughter might also have just been, I don't know, not realizing that was a weird thing.
Right. And so I would say that at 6.5, it would just, what your job is as mom is to try to give an answer appropriate for a 6.5-year-old. So that's going to definitely involve a fair bit of listening. So and God is going to allow these situations to sort of pop up in many, many different ways. And the way that it came to you is the way that you will have the grace to handle. So I would say it would be very fitting as a parent to gently and lovingly inquire why the child wanted that particular arrangement of the sexes of the dolls to play house or whatever. Or you can very innocently ask, and where are the husbands? Because it takes a wife and a husband who are married to make a child. So where are the dads? And then it's a very innocent and gentle way of redirecting in the right direction for the child to sort of follow the model of God's design. And so it's a lot of listening, observing, gently asking questions to sort of understand the intent of the child, what they meant. It could have been an innocent thing. Maybe the women were just best friends and they were having a mom play date with their kids. I mean, then that would be fine. The husbands are busy working, not in the picture. So there's a lot of room to be very gentle and loving, but always talking about the good, the true, and the beautiful about God's design for family, that it takes a man and a woman who are married and in love to then have that baby, and then just kind of stay high level from there and just, ease your way up as she gets older and maybe has other questions. And it is very difficult because I think the first time we got pulled into a discussion about homosexuality in entertainment was actually when we were living in Colorado. and we were watching Doctor Who, the television series, the reboot, and all of our kids were watching it. And eventually, in the later seasons, they do start gradually highlighting some homosexual, like, not agendas, but couples were inside the storyline. And
it was kind of agenda-ish.
Yeah, and so suddenly you realize, I probably need to have a discussion with my 10-year-old boy, about this. And he need to know, like, hey, we're Catholic, and this is what Catholics believe, and here's why we believe it, and let's just have a conversation so that the child knows to identify truth and then to identify when truth is not being observed, and it's a cross to basically live with same-sex attraction, but there's a path for celibacy and chastity even with same-sex attraction. We are all called to be celibate and chaste, no matter our orientation or any of that. That's just what we have to do. And so but I would not just force these conversations on your kids, but sort of just observe, let them come up, and then you can respond.
And the conversation will intensify as the years go on.
Yeah.
Right? So starting at that as a soft entry point, talking about marriage, God intended marriage to be between a man and a woman. Sometimes, and it's okay to be completely honest as well, I think. Sometimes, you might see it on TV where they want you to think that it's okay for two women or two men. But we know that God meant it to be one man and one woman. That's the intent, right? That's
yes.
what God wants.
And we do live in a country where it has been legalized. And so they may encounter people saying, well, it's legal. I'm not breaking the law. So then you have to have a conversation about God's law and man's law and the difference. And so lots of stuff.
The catechism, I think I've always loved these paragraphs about chastity in regards to homosexuality in the catechism. I think the church does a great job of explaining it, looking at paragraphs 2357 through 2359. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it points out very clearly that the number of men and women who have deep-seated homosexual tendencies is not negligible, meaning it's a reality. And so let's acknowledge that reality. It's there. It's not negligible. This inclination, which is objectively disordered, constitutes for most of them a trial. Now, again, they're taking that from the previous paragraph, which says, tradition has always declared that homosexual acts are intrinsically disordered. Now, listen, someone might get really angry at that word disordered. What do you mean it's disordered? Well, we all have lots of disorders. I've been diagnosed in the last 5 years of having post-traumatic stress disorder. My reaction to stressful situations is disordered. The way that I react to these things is disordered. It's not normal. It's not right. There is a more natural and calmer way of reacting to stressful situations. The way I react when I go to Kroger and I start just hearing mumbling sounds in the background from all the muzak playing and too many voices, the way I react is not ordered. It's disordered. It's strange because it's like I don't take that as an indictment on my personality or on the love God has for me, or it's a trial that I have to live with and learn to overcome. If someone came up to me and tried to convince me that what I was experiencing and that stress and anxiety was completely normal, I think that would make me even a little more crazy.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think that my brain could reconcile that. So that's one thing. There's heterosexuals that have a disordered love of pornography, a disordered love of other sexual attractions. There's people that have a disordered love of food or drink, or there's lots of disorders. In this case, it's the act of homosexuality, the homosexual act, and that's important. Now, how do you say that to a 6.5-year-old? I don't know.
And you may not even have to go there at this point.
But it's good for
So,
you as the parent to know that this is what the church teaches. It's the act that's disordered, but the inclination is not necessarily so, because it talks about, in the next paragraph, 2358, the original one I was talking about, this inclination, which is objectively disordered, constitutes for most of them a trial. I can't imagine the difficulty of having that disorder, of having that inclination. It's a trial because many people that have that disordered view of sexuality know it's disordered, and they don't want to have that attraction, but they have to deal with it. Every sign of unjust discrimination in their regard should be avoided. That's something I think is really clear. So there's a lot more in there. Again, those are paragraphs 2357 through 2359. Worth reading if you've never read that in the catechism. That's good stuff. I don't know if that really helped in regards to dealing with your 6.5-year-old, but we've always approached these things with honesty. Probably talked to the kids many times, but I feel like at the same time, our kids, for the most part, have talked to us about these things too, and the struggles that they've dealt with, and we've gotten a certain level of honesty, I think, because we were honest with them. So hopefully that's of a little bit of help to you, Lori. And again, if you have questions or feedback, you can always let us know, feedback at gregandjennifer.com. That's all I got for this week. By the way, we're going into the summer months. We were going to talk a little bit about summertime and all that kind of stuff. As we shared on the last show, our schedule has gotten all whopper-jawed. We did get some emails from some of you this week, worried that there wasn't a podcast last week. I guess I kind of figured from what we talked about on the previous episode that it was,
it was implied.
It was implied that we may not get a show from time to time. We had to cancel a whole bunch of interviews. We're hoping that in the next few weeks we can get our schedule back in order again. But if a week goes by that there's not a show, it just means that we had a disordered view of our scheduling and we were not able to get one done. No worries. Don't worry about us. But I was also kind of thinking, I don't want to declare officially like an every other week schedule for summertime. I don't want to go down that route because I feel like
you just went down the route.
No. I feel like that's a dangerous route to go down. As soon as you start saying that that's the way it's going to be, then it's like, no. But we are doing our best to try to get our acts together, but with all the School of Mary stuff in the next few weeks and lots of production, all the things we keep talking about, just please be patient with us if we do miss a week here or there over the summer. We promise you we'll get back on schedule very soon.
I do have a couple prayer requests.
Yeah. I got one. I imagine you're going to say the one. I don't know the other.
I have just please continue to pray for Tommy.
Yeah.
And we, as his parents, will continue to bind him to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. I take great comfort in that prayer. And Father Gobi had popularized it many years ago, that if you are concerned about a child who is straying from the faith,
or just about your kids in general,
you pray that prayer. You pray your daily rosary, and at the end you say, I bind my children to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and she will take care of them. So you have to believe that. So I'm standing on that belief. Also, I would like to ask for your prayers for Ben, who is a very new driver, and he's having to take on a lot of very big drives very quickly. So I just humbly ask for your prayers for his protection and his wisdom behind the wheel.
If you've ever driven through Atlanta traffic, that's what he's up against right now.
Yeah, it's a lot. He's doing very good, but it's still, there's a lot of people who are just very bold and rude, and they are not very kind, unfortunately.
Even with 3 student driver magnets on the car. So,
and which one, like for our friend Patrick?
Yeah.
Okay. So you share this. You're a little more informed about this very sad situation.
A friend of ours from church, great guy. He was on our pilgrimage to the March for Life last year. That's when we first got to know him.
He helped us get Lily confirmed ahead of schedule.
Yeah. He is
great guy.
Head of, I think, religious education and a lot of other things at our parish. So he's a full-time employee at the parish.
Very busy guy, in charge of a lot of things.
Dad of, I think, six kids now. Their youngest was just born recently, maybe 7. I kind of lose track. He was out on a bike yesterday and had a bad accident, broke his leg really badly, hurt his shoulder, had to have emergency surgery today.
On his leg.
His shoulder's doing better, according to his wife, but about 5 or 6 hours ago, his wife posted that there were complications from the surgery, and he was having some swelling, some blistering, some other issues in the leg. And the doctor was concerned and said that these next 6 hours were critical. And if they couldn't get it under control, that there was a risk of him having to lose part of his leg. So that would be pretty terrible, especially for a relatively young dad. If you could please be praying for Patrick and his family, his wife and his children. God's will to be done. I have no doubt he's a great man of God, that he will accept God's will, whatever it might be. And so we ask for your prayers there. And something, and this is, again, going back to my conversation with the Fiveable guys earlier today, we were talking about prayer and prayer requests, and that's something that we've done through Rosary Army from time to time, of making that possible for people to submit prayer requests. And we haven't said this to you in a while, and quite honestly, I know I haven't personally been doing the greatest job lately with my daily rosaries of saying, I offer this up also for all the people who have been impacted by Rosary Army, may be impacted by Rosary Army, or have asked for our prayers through Rosary Army. But please know that we do our best, and we do try to pray for you and keep you in our prayers. It's something that, and so we have so many balls in the air with Rosary Army that we're trying to juggle, that we want to be good stewards of all the different areas of responsibility that we have, the podcast and School of Mary and the Rosary distribution and praying for you. Please know that we do truly love you and care for you, and we are so appreciative of the fact that you spend time with us, either listening to the podcast or watching it on YouTube, and know that we are praying for you. And if there's some specific way that we can pray for you, even if we can't respond to you right away, we read all of the emails. Feel free to drop us a line sometime. We'll be happy to pray for you. And even, again, if we don't respond, please know that we will see it, and we will stop what we're doing at that moment and pray for you. And we hope you'll do the same for us in the requests that we just mentioned. We got to hold each other up in that way, especially in today's world. I think we all need a lot more prayer than we did, 10 years ago. We're in a weird world. So thank you for hanging out with us as always. Go over to rosaryarmy.com. Check out the different resources we have there. Go over to schoolofmary.com, and you can get on the waiting list. So as soon as School of Mary is available, you can get first access to that. Pray your rosary every day.
And do whatever it takes to be holy.
I'm trying to press the button, and it's not working. I'll try this one instead. There we go.
You were hitting the wrong button.
I don't know. It was lit up. Should have been doing something. There you go. God bless you, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us. So appreciate it. See you in a few days, maybe a week. I don't know.
We'll do our best. Bye.